Cruise news time, and we got us one of them good old stories of fool around and find out. As we see a disgruntled cruiser arrested for his actions. We also have a magical story coming from Port Everglades, and Garfield the cat called me on the phone this morning, excited that it's only about 100 days until his new favorite cruise ship is launched. Plus, we have a celebrity cruise ship delayed back to port. And let me ask you a question. Is it ever okay for a cruise entertainer to publicly shame a guest? There might be a time. We'll talk about that. Cruise news and my views. Let's talk about it. Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to Lido, Loca. I'm your host, Tony, here with the latest cruise news and views. Well, it's for your face on Friday, October the 20th, 2023. And I got a big old pile of cruise news. Let's jump right into it. You may have heard a few days ago, there was a cruise ship in Singapore that received a bomb threat. And of course, a bomb threat, something to take very seriously, which the cruise line did. They evacuated the cruise ship, did a thorough search, and found no bomb, which was great. The bomb threat, that's the fool around part. And of course, the investigation continues, and we're now at the find out part. A gentleman from Singapore, Neo Hugh Yim, was arrested and charged for sending an email bomb threat. And, he's probably saying, I did that for a good reason. You know why he sent it? He was disgruntled over a cruise refund. He felt the Resorts World Cruises cruise line did not give him back the money that he was entitled to. And of course, he probably led the police right to them. In the email that he sent, he said, please return me back my monies or else the ship will explode and everyone will be dropped into the sea. Man, it is certainly crazy when you let your passions override the logical part of your brain and you do something silly. Like I said, disgruntled. And I used the word disgruntled the other day, and I've done this myself. A lot of people like to use the word gruntled to say the opposite of disgruntled. And I finally looked it up. It's interesting. The word disgruntled, which means unhappy or dissatisfied, actually existed before the word gruntled, but so many people throughout history have had that same proclivity as myself and other people that commented over the last few days, like that they wanted to use gruntled to mean happy, that it actually in the 1930s became a word that you can use to mean happy. So I like that. I always thought I was making something up when I said gruntled in opposite of disgruntled, like, hey, I'm pretty gruntled about this scenario. I'm pretty happy about this scenario, but there you go. There's a little word history for you on this Friday morning. Are you disgruntled or are you gruntled with your latest cruise experience? If you are in the disgruntled category, I hope you now have an example of what not to do in that situation. Maybe just call a friend or post it on Facebook that you didn't like your cruise experience. Don't go to this extreme. Leave a comment below. Cruise news story number 2, like I mentioned, Garfield called me on the phone, the famous cat, and said that his newest favorite cruise ship is only about 100 days from sailing. I'm sure you know what it is. It's the Icon of the Seas, which at one point was famously quipped to be the lasagna of the seas. And if you know anything about that orange and black tabby cat with his friend Odie, his favorite food is lasagna. So there you go. We're about 100 days away from that new monolith of a cruise ship, the Icon of the Seas, making her debut. And I'm looking forward to see what all the hubbub is about. A lot of people fired up to be on that cruise ship. I know my friend Don Terrace is going to be on that pretty early in the cycle. And so, I'm looking forward to seeing what's going on. I don't like ricotta cheese. I'm just going to say that Jenny B makes the lasagna and it's got ricotta and she makes a wonderful lasagna, but I just don't like it. I think buca de pepa is my favorite out and about lasagna. I've had some frozen lasagnas too. That's your segment of lasagna talk for today. We're covering it all. Word history, pastas, everything that you want. It's a one-stop shop here at La Lido Loca. Okay, cruise news story number 3. Port Everglades, down there near Fort Lauderdale, Florida, is getting a magical makeover. They have a cruise terminal 4 that they're doing up nice and purty. They're putting some theming on it. It's going to be the new Disney Terminal. When you wish upon a star. Excitingly, starting next month, November 2023, there'll be 2 Disney cruise ships sailing from Port Everglades, the Disney Dream and the Disney Magic. And I know that Disney Cruise Line, the Disney company itself, is one of those polarizing companies where, depending on a lot of things, you either like it or you don't like it, but they're definitely a big player in the cruising space. And so, yeah, there you go. This is an opportunity to talk good about Disney or talk bad about Disney, and for the rest of us to judge where you're coming from. So that's always interesting when there's things in society where, based on how somebody talks about something, you can get some insight into their whole life ideology. And Disney is one of those things. Disney and where you stand on the New York pizza versus Chicago pizza debate, it says a lot about a person. So there you go. Have fun with that in the comments. Cruise news story number 4 probably doesn't impact a lot of people, but to the people it will impact. It's significant. But again, this is one of those nice framework type stories that kind of tells us as cruisers that stuff could happen. In this story, we're talking about the celebrity cruise ship, the Celebrity Silhouette. She's currently on an 11-day sailing from Southampton to the Canary Islands to ports in Portugal. And she's set to return to Southampton on October the 22nd. However, they've run into some poor weather and their return to Southampton will be delayed. They still believe that the ship will return on October the 22nd, but they're not sure what time of day it will happen. They're going to give another update tomorrow on Saturday, October the 21st, but it's important. It's important for the people that need to get on that cruise ship. What time do you show up at the cruise port? And this story is not unusual in the breadth of cruising, that sometimes your embarkation and debarkation can be delayed. And so I lay it out there just as general knowledge for cruisers that if this ever happens to you, do not be surprised. It is one of those things in cruising, as of course, cruise lines and the rest of the world are subject to the weather. But yeah, very specifically, are you on the October 22nd sailing of the Celebrity Silhouette? Have you ever been delayed on embarkation or debarkation day? That would be a great story. Leave it in the comments below. Now, before I get to this very important question of whether it's okay for a cruise entertainer to publicly shame a cruise guest, let's talk about a couple things. First, let's talk about the 3 cruise ports I showed you at the end of the show yesterday. There are a lot of people with good eyes out there. I didn't fool anybody. I wasn't really trying to fool anybody, but good on you for recognizing the very popular cruise port in Mexico, Cozumel, Mexico. The second one, the muddy waters of the Mississippi, should have been a clue. That is the port of New Orleans. Good morning, America. How are you? Don't you know that I'm your native son? I'm the train they call the city of New Orleans. Shout out Ludacris. A couple versions of that song I really like. Arlo Guthrie, Willie Nelson, Ludacris. Shout out Luda. The third cruise port were the White Cliffs of Dover. Congratulations to Tracy Mayer Travel, who I think was the first in the pinned comments to call it out correctly. Cozumel, New Orleans, Dover. Way to go. Stay tuned to the end of the show for another port quiz. It's another port quiz. I wonder if port quiz needs its own theme song. Maybe so. All right, let's address this question. Is it ever okay for a cruise entertainer to publicly shame a cruise guest? Now, I saw this conversation play out over on Carnival social media, where again, you have a guest complaining about being offended by R-rated comedy. On Carnival, very plainly, they say at the Late Show that this is the R-rated show. If you're easily offended, don't sit through the show and get offended. If you're offended by the curse words and the sexual innuendo and all the things that go with typical R-rated comedy, don't sit through the show. Well, people still sit through the show and then they complain about being offended. And now the interesting thing about this is somebody sat through the R-rated show, but not the whole show. They got so offended that they got up and left in the middle of the show. And then while they were leaving the show, they got made fun of by the comedian for leaving the show. And so not only were they offended by the show, they were offended that they got made fun of by the comedian for leaving the show. And so that becomes a question. Is it wrong for the comedian to shame the person leaving their show? I say no. That's one of the dangers of stand-up comedy. If you're going to draw attention to yourself while somebody else is doing their work And in this case, that's the stand-up comedian delivering his stand-up comedy. If you're going to be disruptive to that activity, and certainly getting up in the middle of the show and walking out is disruptive, well, then that's another instance where you fool around and find out. And I think you just got to take it on the chin. But I want to bring up something that wasn't even talked about in this conversation. What about the performer that calls the people out who come in late to the show? Like, imagine if you're watching a singer in the main theater and 20 minutes into the show, somebody comes in and sits down in front, which I never understand why anybody would do that. Is it right for that singer to draw attention to the person that has disrupted the show? It's not going to be any surprise where I come from on both of these. Sure. I think if you are disruptive to somebody doing their thing, then you have put yourself in the danger zone and you should get called out on that stuff. But do you think it's wrong as a paying customer that some entertainer that's a part of your vacation is now making you feel bad? What do you think? Where's the truth lie on this one? How do you feel about that one? Leave a comment below. And now, if you would allow me to try something new, I want to add just another little segment to the show called the Moment of Gratitude. And maybe this is something that we could do together. Clear your mind and think of something that you are grateful for. And I'll share with you a couple things that I'm grateful for. And we can see if this whole gratitude movement actually has any teeth. I want to tell you two things I'm grateful for, one personally, and then one in regards to the show. The first thing that I'm personally grateful for is my 20-year relationship with the lovely Jenny B. Of course, my wife. We've been through a lot of adventures together, and today we embark on another adventure. And I've just been overjoyed this morning thinking about this next thing for us. And I'm very excited, and I'm very grateful that my life is so much more different than it was 20 years ago. And I'm so much more enriched because of my relationship with Jenny B. And so, yeah, when times are tough, I need to remember that. And then secondly, the thing that always makes me happy is you guys. A big thanks to the daily viewers of the show, the folks that come back time after time, and you show your support by leaving comments and encouraging me, and I'm super thankful. And then on top of that, every day we get new people that come and watch the show. And so specifically to the new viewer, the person that's only seen a few of these shows, or this may be your very first show, thank you so much for watching the show. I would love if you became one of those people that watch on a daily basis. That's why every day I'll invite you to subscribe. I'm going to do it today. If you want to stay up to date with everything going on in cruising, if you want to be a part of that number of people that come back on a daily basis, subscribe button, notification bell, that'll keep you in the know. But yeah, again, beyond all of that, thank you for watching this show. And if you haven't yet, maybe pause the video for a second and just reflect on what you're thankful about. The world has so many things to be, unhappy about and challenged with. And maybe the gratitude is the thing that will pull us out of that. But yeah, just a moment of gratitude. Do you have them thinking caps on? Are you ready to identify today's cruise ports? Big thanks again for watching. Hit that like button. Tony for Lido, Loca. And until the next time, we'll see you on the Lido. What are these 3 cruise ports? Bye.